The views and opinions of the guest do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Radio Network, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Radio Network.
This is Jim Reed, guitarist of Unmaker, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour, your source for all hard rock, heavy metal, new metal, alternative, punk, horror punk, hardcore, rock, and all local bands, with your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather. As always, I'm bringing you guys awesome interviews. Today, it's an honor and a privilege to have Mr. Jim Reed. He's a guitarist of Unmaker. They hail from Richmond, Virginia. They have a self-released debut album called Firmamen. It's out Friday, October 19th. You want to get out and pick this up if you like old school punk, metal. See what else is involved. It's goth, new wave. It's pretty cool stuff, and I like it. And they haven't strayed away from their sound when they first started out. So, how's it going, Jim?
It's going great. How you doing?
Doing awesome. Glad to have you on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's get right into this. You met future vocalist Aaron Mitchell, who's with Slowing Crater, at a local punk show in 2015, and you had discussions regarding playing music outside of the strict confines of punk and metal. So let's talk about how all this came together with you guys.
I knew him from around town, like our bands would play shows together. I'm also in another band called Occultist, which is like a band, a mix of punk and metal, all different types. And he was in Crater, which is like a black metal band. And we used to play shows together. And we were kind of acquaintances from that. We didn't really know each other, super well. And then he was doing I don't know if you remember that old punk band, Cockspur, from England. But he was doing a Cockspur tribute band for this thing called Punks for Presents, which is a charity organization here in Richmond, Virginia, that makes sure that children can get presents during Christmas time and supplies that they need and things like that.
That's awesome.
For underprivileged children. And I'm a fan of that particular band, Cockspur, and his vocals were just incredible. And I didn't know that he could sing. Like, I knew he could scream, from his black metal band, but the dude could really sing, and I didn't realize how much he could sing. And we ended up kind of becoming buddies after that show, and then we went out drinking a few times, and basically just at the bar and getting tanked, more or less. And then we were just talking about other things that we liked, besides the stuff we were doing in punk and metal bands. And it's not to say that punk and metal has like some sort of strict confines, but I would say it's more of the confines of the bands that we were in at the time that were within the punk and metal milieu, if you will. But just like I had riffs and things like that I've been writing that just didn't really fit, properly with the band I was in. And he had ideas of his band that weren't fitting correctly either, and he kind of lamented to me. He was like, man, he's like, nobody wants like a guy that could sing in a band from around here that's into like really the underground DIY stuff. He's like, I just wish somebody would have me in a band just so I could just sing. He's like, I like screaming and stuff, I love all that, but he's like, it'd be nice. And I was like, well, shit, I'll do a band with you and you just sing if you want to sing, and he was like, well, fuck, let's do it. Next thing we know, got some other cats together, and here we are.
First off, I got to say big shout out and kudos to Aaron for that cover band, and plus doing that around Christmas time for these kids, man, because I'm from Eastern Kentucky. You're from Richmond, Virginia. It's not too much of a heritage difference. You know what I'm saying? So
nope.
I give him 1,000 high fives on that, man, because you know it and I know it. It's very hard around here for some folks to make ends meet. And just for somebody to take time out to raise Christmas gifts for kids that they don't know, that's fucking awesome, man.
We do it every year here, man. It's really cool, and everybody comes up with really clever versions of the band names. Like, they had, like for instance, Kim, who was briefly in Guar, like she did Snowbituary. She was doing obituary songs with her front in it, which is pretty funny. And then we have Slayer, but it's spelled like Santa Slay. And just like that kind of stuff going on, definitely like a play on words.
Yeah.
We have a toy division, like a Joy Division tribute for kids. It's a big thing here in Richmond. We do it every year. Local news even covers it and stuff.
That's
and
awesome.
It's a good thing. Raise a lot of money for kids and the underprivileged. So
for sure,
we're happy to be part of it. It's nice that it shows that to people that punk and metal people aren't the losers that a lot of people think that we are.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And we haven't forgot where we came from. I mean, we're still just everyday people.
Nope.
I'm just a little rinky-dink home DJ who likes to do interviews, and if I can give $1 or $5 back to people, then I'll do it. You know what I mean? It's I don't know.
Yeah, it's the same thing with us. I mean, none of us are coming from, none of us are rich kids. So,
exactly. I know exactly what you're talking
about. We're all dudes that work for a living, you know what I mean?
What's impressed or excited you the most about this new album? What's caught your eye about it the most, if anything, Jim? What sticks out about it for you?
I guess, it's hard because, from the inside looking out, I guess I'm going to see different things than someone from the outside looking in. But I guess, for me, I kind of like the way that it's mastered, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but I'm an audio engineer for a living, so I pick up on little things like that a bit more, I guess, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure casual listeners do too. But the guy who mastered it is this gentleman, Dan Randall, who runs Mammoth Sound Mastering. And he masters, like, the Better Call Saul soundtrack every season. He's done Breaking Bad. He does Walking Dead. He does Adventure Time. So he's a cinematic mastering guy, but he's also a punk metal dude. He used to play guitar in the band Ghoul. And he's been an old friend of mine, and he really wanted to master the record. And I feel like he did it in more like a cinematic way. I feel like if you listen to it in a big system, it has like that wide, almost panoramic, kind of sound to it. And that's kind of what I wanted, I mean, we wanted a mixture of that and like some kind of lo-fi, because we don't want to come out like too produced out the gate just because, that's not really, A, we can't afford it, but B, like, and that's not really, who we are either. We're a little rough around the edges. So sure. I feel like it's a good balance of decent production and still rough around the edges. So I guess that's what caught my ear, so to speak.
Working with him on this, how hard did he push you guys when you went into the recording studio? Did he just let you do your own thing, then step in, or how hard did he push you all?
Well, yeah, he did push. Well, so this is, Dan, he mastered it, so he got a post-production as far as like after it was out of the studio. We recorded this guy named Rick Olson, who runs the Ward Studios in Richmond, Virginia, and he's a friend of ours that's worked with us in previous bands we've been in and current bands. And he basically took on the role of producer. He felt like the songs were special, and he kind of wanted to put his stamp on it and asked us if we're open to different interpretations as far as like maybe changing some of the arrangements or like flopping a solo over here, kind of thing, or this and that. And then we'd had a synth player who was starting to record with us, but it wasn't really working out. His arrangements weren't really jiving with what we arranged. So our producer, Rick, he was just like, hey, I'll play, I play synthesizer a bit. I'll just do it, So he ended up joining in on the record, and he played synthesizer on some of it. And obviously he helped with the production and arrangement and the engineering and tracking and did all that stuff. So yeah, I would say that he definitely pushed us. I mean, the biggest thing that we were trying to do with it was still give it a live feel. So the record was essentially, the band recorded essentially live without a click track. And what came in later was like some guitar overdubs and vocal overdubs and synth overdubs. But the core, the raw music, the raw core of it is a live band playing without any frills, essentially.
Could you see yourself working with Rick Olson again on another album, possibly?
No, of course. Yeah. Rick was great, man. I mean, he's probably the most like patient, calm dude I've ever met in the studio. I mean, he doesn't let anything get him rattled. And, he's just like, it's cool. He's just always cool, calm, and collected. Yet he's like, there's a sense of urgency to how he works too. So he's a good balance of both of those things.
Any songs off the new album that stand out more to you than any on it as of right now, possibly? I mean, I know these are like picking your favorite collectible or child or vehicle. Or
yeah.
Whatever, but
I mean, for me, I like Children of the Clouds a lot, which is the first little teaser single we put out on our Bandcamp. I think that's a pretty catchy tune. I like the first track, Horizon of Cognition. I dig it for whatever reason. And I guess I'll pick 3 total out of there. And then let me think of what the third one would be. Maybe Black Ribbons, White Roses might be the third one. It's a tough one, but like maybe my third favorite's that one.
How important is it for Unmaker's music to stay the way it is right now? Or are you guys happy with it, or are you guys still wanting to push your sound outside that box to still grow?
We're always looking to try different things. We're hoping our box isn't too small that it's in right now, but we just as musicians, we're always trying different stuff. And one thing about us, like obviously we come from, as I mentioned before, we come from kind of a punk and metal background or whatever, but we aren't strictly like chained down to that. We like all kinds of music from, all kinds of places. So if there's something that we're into artistically and we feel like it's coming out naturally and we can be a conduit for whatever that is, it's going to come out. I mean, with that said, we actually already have almost enough songs for another record written already behind us.
Damn, that's pretty good.
And Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I would say, I mean, you know, if not to put the cart before the horse, but I would say that the vibe is definitely more menacing. I'll just say that much. It's darker and more menacing of the new stuff.
So it's going to be another full length instead of an EP?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing we're trying to decide too. Is you know, like how weird things are now with the music industry and how
Sure
people
thing.
listen to music in general.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure how old you are, but I'm like, you know, I'm just over 40, and you know, the records, the way that I grew up listening to records, and the way that I think a lot of people younger than me now listening to records is definitely not the same. But in the underground, maybe it's still similar. But I feel like doing full records isn't something that always catches people's attention span as much in the era of Spotify and like, you know, kind of instant gratification and like the idea of like, you know, I'm just going to grab the one song that I want, just disregard the rest of the record, even though it might be out of context because it's part of a concept or something, you know. So we're kind of undecided on that. Half of us kind of want to just do the EP route and create almost like a novella or vignette of like some sort of theme maybe or motif, you know, for each one, and maybe have them linked together somehow. We thought about doing that, but we're not exactly sure. But then part of me is just like, yeah, go with what you know, put out another full length. I don't know. I guess we'll just cross the bridge when we get closer, or I guess how we feel about the body of songs that we have too. Like if we feel that we could trim the fat and there's only like 5 good ones, and maybe that's an EP, you know?
No, I'm 39. I remember buying CDs and cassettes and records and things. So I remember.
Yeah, you know the deal. So
I sure do.
It's just there's some generational difference going on. That's okay. I mean, change is a natural part. You know what happens in the world, but I also want to like not just feel like statically locked to one sort of way of doing records. You know,
Sure.
I think that's something I'm not. You know, just for this. You know, just because I'm comfortable with it doesn't mean it's maybe the most effective thing to be doing. And I think it's good to push yourself out of your comfort zone in every way if you're an artist, you know.
How much of a confidence boost is it for you guys to getting your music out there right now with this full length, and plus getting requests for interviews and things like that? How much is a confidence boost for you guys from this point on?
I mean, it's nice that people seem to care about what we're doing, you know. I mean, it's been slowly trickling in. I wouldn't say we've had like an inundation of interviews or anything. We've had a few places. And it's nice, you know. You just never know. I mean, I don't know how we're going to react. And there was a couple places, too, that didn't react well to it. I was kind of surprised. I was like, okay, well, I mean, oh, whatever, you know, kind of thing. But we're going to keep doing us and, you know, not really. I mean, it's a nice confidence boost, but I think it's very important to, like, not get lost in it. Because at the very end of the day, I need to be proud of what I put out, and hopefully that it stands the test of time, you know what I mean? Regardless of what, like, press people think, you know what I mean? It's kind of where I'm at with it, I guess. Hopefully that answers your question.
How much local support does Unmaker get via venues and radio right now, possibly?
We do really well here in our hometown. We got a lot of support here. There's a radio station, WRIR, that plays our stuff quite a bit. There's another they're like a, you know, clear channel, more mainstream radio stations, like 102.1. One of the program directors there is a big fan, is like, I think has been pushing the player stuff. I haven't really pushed hard at it, you know, just because I don't know if we really fit their format, but they, you know, at least we got interest from, I guess, more of the mainstream type radio station, which is kind of weird, but interesting. And then, as far as like, you know, shows go, they go well, man. I mean, people seem to support and care. We got our record release show Halloween here in town at a nice venue called Gallery 5, and it's a mixed bill. I mean, there's a hip hop act on there, and there's a hardcore punk act, and there's a kind of a math rock act that has like crazy 3 and 4 part harmony vocals. So, you know, I feel like there's good support, but you know, beyond that, I mean, Richmond also is just a good town for musical support, period. Like, people will just go to a show because there's a show happening and they don't even care who's playing. You know, it's that kind of town. So I think it's a mixture of both, but we definitely get good support here, though.
What do you hope the folks take away from this album, and plus Unmaker's music, or message you hope they hear while they're listening to your guys' music?
Just hope that people maybe would be inspired, maybe in a creative way with it. Maybe go off and, you know, make their own way, or maybe there would be things they hear and they'll be like, oh, well, you know, these idiots can do that. I can probably do this, but do it better. You know what I mean? Or something like that, you know, like just in some way inspiring. Hopefully it gets them through their day, you know, like, you know, records definitely help me get through like shitty periods of my life. Maybe somebody will help someone get through like a shitty day or a shitty week, you know. And that's kind of what I hope for. You know, if anything, I just hope it's a natural reaction. I definitely don't put expectations on reactions from individuals, you know, because it's so subjective. Art's really subjective, and
Sure.
I just feel like, you know, just let it flow, and whatever happens.
How much growth musically have you seen this band, including yourself, go through up to this release, or has it just been more of a personal growth for all of you guys involved with this?
I'd say it's a combination of both as far as like artistic skill set and personal. I would say it's all of them. Definitely with this kind of stuff, like compared to the other bands I write in, there's definitely a finer touch to some of it. There's more dynamics, there's quiet parts, that kind of stuff. So on a pure like on a player level, just a guy that plays guitar in a band, or I would say that I just have to pay attention when I'm doing more of the dynamics. When I get quiet, I have to make sure I'm getting quiet, the right amount and that kind of stuff. And obviously when you're quieter too, you make like a little bit of a mistake live, make a train wreck stuff. So you don't want to do that either.
Right.
So I got to really pay attention what I'm doing. I mean, when you're playing like a million miles per hour with a bunch of distortion, if there's like a slight flub, most of the time live people aren't going to notice it. If you do a slight flub at a really quiet part where it's focused on the guitar, everybody's going to hear it. So there's that kind of stuff I've learned. It's made me a tighter and better player, I think. And I think that goes for everybody, And as far as people goes, yeah, I mean, we definitely, I already had a bond with the drummer because he's also my other band, Occultist. And we just grown together because he was feeling the same way too. He just wanted to try some different stuff, try different rhythms and, the stuff in metal and punk that he does, So, it's made us better friends too. It's actually increased our level of communication, and that's actually helped us in the other band now. We're able to communicate a lot better with like things. So I think it's helped out in that regard a lot. And Aaron and I, the vocalists, have grown into being very, very close friends. And Chris kind of came into the fold later. He's our bass player. He came in after the record was recorded, but he kind of feels like he's someone that's been there all along. He's just that kind of fit, just like he's funny, we cut up at practice and stuff all the time. So it's yeah, I would say that's been a positive growth all the way around for everybody.
When you're going into that recording studio, do you do anything differently during that writing and recording process to help keep your mind fresh and open to new stuff, to new ideas? Do you do anything differently to help you out maybe?
Writing, I don't really think about anything. I just try to put my hands in the instrument and see what comes out. I never really, sometimes I do, but for the most part, I don't really, as I've gotten older, I don't really go in the intent of like, I'm going to write a riff that's like this. I don't really do that at all. I just put my hands on the guitar and just see where that takes me, and then I start repeating patterns or something I like, and then they start messing with stuff. That's one thing with this band. Like I do use more effects in this band than I do in my other band. And sometimes it's interesting for me to write. I can sometimes write it based around an effect doing something, rather than just based around, even when I'm doing quarterly on the guitar, it could be like a rhythmic thing that the delay pedal and reverb are doing combined, and then I end up coming out with something based upon that rhythmic, oscillation or cycle or whatever. That a lot of music I personally listen to. I'm always looking for new stuff all the time, and a lot of times I look back to old stuff I never knew about before. I'm definitely a seeker with music, and I think that informs me to just not be afraid of trying whatever. But I'd say at this point though, I don't really go in with like any kind of focused intent of like I'm going to write this style of riff. I just like whatever come out. Just let it come out however it's going to come out.
What can fans expect at a show from Unmaker who have not got to see you guys live as of yet?
Well, I think one thing, and I think this is with a lot of bands too, you're going to get the energy of like a punk or a metal band live from a band playing the kind of music we're playing. That has been something that's been commented on. There's people are surprised at the energy level when we play live. I don't know if they expect it to be more morose or something because we're like a little, we've got that melancholy to us, but it is like, we present ourselves, I think, more of a band that's like, all over the stage going crazy rather than a band that's sort of just, looking down at their shoes with the lights dimmed, a high energy, kind of rock and roll presentation, even though our music isn't strictly in that confine, on record.
Do you like the digital era of recording albums to get music out quicker and plus social media to reach out to more fans to help an up and coming band who may need that boost to get out there more? Do you like this that we're in right now?
I do and I don't. I'd say I like it more than anything. I do more than anything. It's good to have. I think it's nice and liberating for someone to have the ability to feel like they can create something and then immediately share it with other people. Like I grew up in this really isolated town in South Florida, and it was like hard to even get a show or get anything out there to anybody. And I couldn't even imagine having social media when I was coming up in that place because maybe everything could have been different. I don't know, but I feel on one hand it's a very good thing. I feel on the other hand sometimes. And this is just a very opinionated thing. It's just more of an argument. I think I'm playing devil's advocate with myself. But the other side of it is, I feel like some artists, they have that ability and they're just immediately putting out, whatever's coming off the top of their head. And then maybe some of them are not putting as much time or effort or work into the actual craft, like making strategic decisions before they do that, and just throwing it out there, because it's kind of this instant throw and go kind of thing, which can be cool sometimes too. I mean, a lot of punk records are written that way, and that's cool. But sometimes I think, I know I've seen it with younger artists, looking back, I'll find like one of their old accounts on whatever, MySpace or something, and they're just like, oh yeah, I did that, so it's like, so maybe it's a good and bad thing, I don't know, but regardless, you're going to grow from it, But I do think it's definitely affected the way that people listen to records. I do feel that attention spans are shorter, and patience to let a record grow on you, I don't feel like people are letting that happen as much. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like they hear a song and it doesn't immediately strike them. They just move on to the next thing. I'm not completely convinced that people are challenging themselves as much as a listener to try to give things a chance that are not immediately in their wheelhouse. I felt like, with some of the records I had growing up, you had to, some things didn't sound like, for instance, like, a record by a band like Big Black, like Steve Albini's old band. I mean, for some people, that's not palatable right away. And there's a genius operating there, and I kind of love that record. When I first heard it, it was definitely like really abrasive and like really kind of like, I was just like, I'm not sure about this, but then I really grew to love it. I feel like, these days, maybe with the digital era, there's not as much of a propensity to give that the same kind of chance, because you can just move on to the next 100 bands that come up in your feed. Yeah. Rather than, me growing up in some shithole town. We had one small record store that's 40 minutes away, and, there was like maybe 40 underground records in that store, and that's basically what you had to choose from. That and mail order through like, Thrasher magazine in the back, or like Sessions magazine, or SST,
In your own opinion, what does Unmaker bring to the table for music that's not out there as of right now, if anything else possibly?
I feel what's a little bit different with us, with guys that are coming from more of a metal and punk background, I definitely say it's not in fashion, and it hasn't been in fashion in a while, to have stuff that's more vocal driven, with like melodic vocals specifically. There's nothing wrong with screamy vocals. Like, I love tons of bands have screamy vocals. It's great. But I feel like it's basically almost seen as not cool, or some people even told me it's retro. I was like, what, is it retro just to sing? I mean, it's part of the human voice, man. So the first thing you hear is the human voice when you're born, Mm-hmm. So I don't know, as far as that goes, I think that's the one thing that stands out. It's more vocal driven, I guess, rather than just like pummeling, with riffs all the time, because we're not strictly a metal band. Obviously we're coming from post-punk and other stuff.
Support-wise, is there a country or a location that stands out more, or even surprises you, that you guys get support from, possibly, if anything?
Well, we're still kind of, believe it or not, still kind of a younger band. We've been doing the slow burn, but I mean, we got good support up in Pittsburgh, and that was nice. People that have been writing us, definitely several people in South America have been writing us that have heard it, like Argentina and Brazil, places like that. So I'm kind of excited that they're excited, over there, and a few folks from Italy. So that was kind of unexpected. It was like 4 or 5 folks from Italy that contacted me over the time. So I'm like, okay, well, somebody other in Italy's listening,
Yeah. It's kind of crazy you mentioned Argentina and South America, because I've had many, many bands on this show to say that they've gotten a lot of support from Argentina and South America.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Argentina, Brazil specifically. I mean, we've definitely gotten like a lot of ads on our Facebook and stuff from those people, and like little messages and stuff, or sharing our music,
That's insane. To me, that's like the capital for like metal and punk. Well, not punk, but metal music, things like that. I mean, they take it to another limit over there. They sure do. Oh,
they're very serious, I would say they're as serious as the Scandinavians were in the early 90s, or still are,
Yep. Oh, God, yeah. What made you want to become a musician? What was it sparked for you, man, if you can recall?
Kind of happened on accident. I never really intended to become a musician. My dad was a musician, and kind of grew up in a rocky household a bit, Wasn't like the worst household in the world, but it was definitely dysfunctional. And one of the things that kind of like calmed the atmosphere was music. My dad was an avid record collector and a musician, and my mom was really into music too. So like I was raised like in a musical household, I'll say that much. So I guess that was always around, maybe I took it for granted growing up, What I really wanted to do was like become either an illustrator or an archaeologist, and that's what I was studying to do, trying to get myself prepared for college. But I got into skateboarding culture early on, like in middle school, and I got turned on to like punk rock music and some, the early thrash metal and that kind of stuff. And that stuff really changed my life and really gave me a different outlook. I realized the music could be more than just some background thing that, you hum along to, that it's actually a cultural thing.
Yeah.
And And I also found other people that felt the same way that I did in the really shitty town that I grew up in South Florida, and it really changed my things. And then, you know, my parents ended up going through a divorce, and the household got rocky. I mean, that community of people more or less took me in when I didn't really have anywhere to go. So I kind of fell into being a musician because I was already immersed in the culture of being around punks and metalheads. And then, you know, they're like, "Oh, you should get a guitar. You should do this." And I was like, "Oh, okay." You know, and I dabbled around with music because my dad was a musician and he encouraged me to play. And so I ended up like just starting bands of people just to see if I could. There was never really any intention like, "Oh, I'm going to be a musician." It was never really like that. It was just, I think it was something I did to stop myself from, you know, going crazy essentially when I was going through some really fucked up shit.
Has there been a show or a moment that stands out to you, or that made you say, this is worth every time that we put into this and effort that we have put into this for this band so far? Have you guys had that moment yet, especially you, maybe?
Oh, absolutely. We've had it more than once already, and that's a really rewarding thing. I mean, we even had it, you know, last show that we played, and especially over the summer, we played this festival here in town called the Commonwealth of Notions, which is it's sponsored by WRIR, the radio station here. It's like a local independent radio station, public radio. And the intention is to have like very different types of artists, and it's all a mixed bill. You have everything from punk to indie rock to math rock. You know, it's like it runs the gamut, you know.
Right.
And we played that, and it was crazy. You know, like the second song in, you know, there's like this kind of 4-on-the-floor heartbeat kind of drum beat that comes in. It's actually the beginning to the song Firmamen, which is the last song on the record. And I look out, and there was more people in the place that had been in there the whole night, which I was surprised. And then everybody was clapping along to the drum beat and like ready to roll. And I was like, "Oh shit, these people are actually here to see us. This is cool." And it was a big reaction, man. And I felt like we put a really good show on. Like I broke a guitar strap in half. Not the guitar strap, but the strap lock, the metal piece. I split it in half at that show.
Yeah.
Which is I've never even done that. I've never even heard of that before. I didn't know that was possible, but that happened. And as it was happening, the crowd saw it, and I grabbed my guitar in time before it completely, you know, hit the stage, and I came down on a downbeat, and I kept going, and didn't even let it affect me. And you know, I guess you know, I definitely felt weird about it at the time, but people were like, "Man," like, you know, the people felt it was like a rock show kind of move. I was like, "No, I didn't do that on purpose, man." Like my shit was like broke in midair, like, you know, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it felt fulfilling. We got really nice feedback from that. Another really fulfilling moment was we played with Skeletal Family. I don't know if you ever heard of them. They're an old post-punk band from England in the 80s. They used to tour with like Sisters of Mercy and Siouxsie and the Banshees and stuff. And we played with them in Baltimore. They were all really nice, and they enjoyed our set, and that was a big deal. And then when they were playing, Stan, their guitar player, he'd only checked one guitar when they flew over. And I guess he broke like 3 strings within the first 2 songs. So he saw me on side stage, and he was like, "Mate, can I grab your guitar?" And I was like, yeah, no problem. But I realized I'm a completely different tuning and different gauge strings, and he's in standard, I'm in C sharp, and it's just like wouldn't work, you know?
Yeah.
So this other guy starts helping me, and I had a bunch of extra strings on me. So we basically ended up teching his guitar real quick, and I'm restringing the guitar. The guy's kind of helping me dig the strings out of the packs and stuff, this other guy, and he's another Englishman. But I didn't see him earlier, and he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry if I'm, you know, a little slow at teching, mate. You know, blah, blah, I haven't teched in a long time." I'm like, "No, it's all right, man. You're helping me out. It's not a big deal, you know?" And he's like, "Yeah, my brother-in-law plays in this band." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." And so we end up talking, and then, you know, we get the guitar changed or whatever. And then I go back to clean up the mess that's in the backstage little area. And he's back there still. And he was like, "Hey, mate," he's like, "Were you in the other band that played just right before them?" He's like, "You were in that band, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, it was brilliant." And I was like, "Oh, thanks, man." I was like, "You play music or anything?" He's like, yeah, I play in some bands." And I was like, "Oh, cool. Anybody I heard of?" He's like, "Well, I'm the founding bassist of Sisters of Mercy. I started the Mission UK, and I used to play in the Cult." And I was just like, "Oh, shit. Okay."
It's like, bang.
Yeah, I was just like, all right. And, you know, and he had some very nice things to say, and he ended up, you know, his name's Craig, but he ended up friending me on, you know, Facebook and stuff later. That was like, for me, that was like, no matter what anybody else says, the dude from Sisters of Mercy like my band, so everybody else can fuck themselves, you know?
Agreed. There you go.
That's kind of how I felt about it, you know?
Folks, Unmaker's new self-debuted album is out October 19th, entitled Firmamen. You want to pick this up, give it a chance. I dig it. I like it. And it's unique. I like what they're doing with this. So Jim, how can folks stay in touch with you guys? Buy this album, tour dates, if you go on tour, tickets, all that good stuff. How can you do that, my friend?
To get the record, go to our Bandcamp. It's unmaker.bandcamp.com. And if you go to Instagram, it's Instagram Unmaker Official. And then Facebook, we have our Facebook, it's under Unmaker, and I believe we're the only one on Facebook.
Before I let you go, good sir, would you care to do a promo for my show?
Absolutely. This is Jim Reed, guitarist of Unmaker, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great music coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and BODS Mayhem Radio Network. Please, folks, keep up with all the interviews at BODS Mayhem Hour's Facebook page. You can also check us out on our YouTube page, BODS Mayhem Hour. Plus, we have a podcast link. All that is on the Facebook page and our YouTube page. So, please, folks, keep in touch with us. We got more stuff coming up. Thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate having us on.
That's when I take my